Zenkichi is a delinquent-looking loser who was forced to join the student council when his hot childhood friend ended up winning the election. Later on, an emo boy and a gold digger girl also joined the student council, and together they started solving all weird problems of students. Until one day, they found out about the dark activities happening in the shadows. Medaka finally wins the election and starts offering assistance in every field of life, including family affairs, stressful workloads, or personal concerns. All the students have to do is use the suggestion box to file their problems anonymously. Later in the class, Zenkichi and Hanso discuss how Medaka managed to win the election with 98% of the votes in her favor. Nonetheless, Zenkichi doesn't have any plan of joining the student council and letting his childhood friend boss him around. Unfortunately, Medaka ends up hearing everything and drags Zenkichi to the student council office. Once in the office, Zenkichi starts explaining all the reasons as to why he doesn't want to join the council. However, Medaka ends up getting stripped in front of him and lets Zenkichi know that she wants him by her side and doesn't care about needing his assistance. Later, they check the suggestion box and find a complaint about the delinquents hanging in the school dojo. Without wasting a single second, both of them give the dojo a visit and come across all the delinquents. She starts confronting them, which results in all the delinquents ready to fight her. Her insanely fast movement makes the wannabe Tokyo Manji gang think that Medaka replicated herself. Once she notices the poor shape of dojo, Medaka starts lecturing the delinquents and lets them know that she will be putting them back into shape. Medaka further reassures them that she will try to fix all the problems that made them astray. With that being said, the first task that the delinquents receive is to do 1,000 push-ups. The next day, he pays the dojo a visit where Medaka is already present and has cleaned the whole place up. Zenkichi mocks her for working this hard, telling her that the delinquents will never show up as those guys are total strangers. However, Medaka argues that she was born to help strangers and only feels at peace when she's helping others. Soon after, Zenkichi gets annoyed and walks out of the dojo just to find all the delinquents present at the gate. Their current goal is to not let Medaka beat them down like yesterday, and they are determined to work hard in order to achieve it. Meanwhile, Zenkichi is walking back home when the person who left the complaint hits Zenkichi in the head with a wooden sword. Afterward, he makes his way into the dojo and beats all the delinquents up. He introduces himself as Habataki, and his goal is to have the dojo all to himself, but he has to take matters into his own hands considering how Medaka didn't scare the delinquents away. Surprisingly, the Medaka effects start working on the delinquents and all of them get up one by one. Just when Habataki is about to attack them, Zenkichi arrives and lands a punch on his face. After embarrassing himself in front of all the delinquents, Habataki is on his way home when he runs into Medaka, who is surprised to see how Zenkichi further messed up Habataki's ugly face. It makes her realize that Zenkichi is the only one who shows concern for her, which she really appreciates. However, the reason Medaka came to meet Habataki is because of the complaint she received about him having a nasty personality. She makes sure to fix his personality, and the lesson begins. This surprisingly results in Habataki joining the dojo and practicing with everyone else. In the end, Zenkichi finally agrees to join the student council, and Medaka gives him a big hug to show her appreciation. It has been a week since Zenkichi became a part of the student council, but he still hates the black uniform and wants to wear the normal white one. Luckily, Medaka advises him to wear the gym jacket under his jacket, which seems like a really badass trip to him. Soon after, a student named Ariake visits the student council room and complains about someone who has messed up her running shoes because she was selected to sprint at the upcoming track meet. Ariake starts crying after realizing that all the jealous third years are culprits and her performance might go down because of this incident. Medaka reassures her and promises to find the culprit as soon as possible. After she leaves, Medaka tells Zenkichi that the culprit is on the same team as Ariake. Zenkichi is surprised to see how well Medaka deducted the culprit, and they head out to confront her. Zenkichi asks Hanso for help and she manages to find Asagi, who is most likely the culprit. Without wasting another second, Medaka pays Asagi a visit and asks if she is the culprit. Asagi freaks out and starts running away, but Medaka manages to catch up to her. Asagi tells Medaka that she doesn't know anything about the incident but accidentally ends up confessing her crimes. Instead of scolding her, Medaka chooses to believe her not being the culprit and walks away, praising her hard work. Simultaneously, Zenkichi arrives and informs Asagi that even though Medaka knows how to doubt others, she chooses to trust them instead. The next day, Ariake pays the student council another visit and informs Zenkichi about how her old shoes were replaced with new ones along with a sorry note. The next day, Zenkichi informs Medaka about all the requests they got and she lets Zenkichi handle the puppy finding one. Soon after, he goes out to locate the puppy with Hansode, but soon realizes that it is no puppy but a big dog that can shred him into pieces. Hansode decides to help Zenkichi out by giving him some sausages so he can act like his insides are spilling out, making the dog feel sorry for him. He decides to go with this plan and run towards the dog, only to fail miserably. He informs Medaka about the failure but still doesn't want to give up. He decides to come up with another plan along with Hansode, which ends up making Medaka jealous, and she decides to help him out as well. Later that day, Medaka wears a freaky-looking dog costume and plans to use her charms on the puppy. However, as soon as she gets close to the dog, it starts getting terrified with each word she says and eventually runs away from her. Zenkichi lets Hansode know that all the animals are scared of Medaka, no matter what kind of beast it is. They manage to reunite the dog with its owner, but Medaka went into a phase of depression, considering how she loves animals, but all of them are terrified of her. Zenkichi has made a rule that he needs to sweat at least 5 liters every day, and has been visiting all the sports-related clubs to make it happen. He is having lunch with Habataki and Hansode when an upperclassman named Kanoya arrives and takes Zenkichi away to have a private conversation. After they leave, Hansode informs Habataki that Kanoya was running for student council as well, and the taste of defeat must have made him hate Medaka. Meanwhile, he takes Zenkichi to the rooftop and informs him about his team and how they are recruiting members. He offers to help Zenkichi get out of Medaka's clutches, as Kanoya wants to forcefully remove Medaka from the student council president as well. Later, Zenkichi informs Medaka about it. However, it doesn't affect her, as she always tries to love everyone equally, and that also includes the enemies trying to harm her. On the other hand, Kanoya plans to beat Medaka up and remove her from the position of president. For this to happen, he gathers all of his allies together, who surprisingly brought a crap ton of weapons to fight a retarded girl like Medaka. Soon after, Zenkichi arrives at their gathering and lets Kanoya know that he wants to become someone who can protect Medaka instead of hurting her. Kanoya gets furious and tries to attack Zenkichi, only to get dominated by Medaka's guard dog. Later that day, Zenkichi visits the student council room and witnesses Medaka and her plot yet again. She informs Zenkichi that Nakomi of the judo club has submitted a request to help them find the next captain of their team. Afterward, both of them pay the judo club a visit and are greeted by none other than Nakomi. Soon after, Akyun makes an appearance and kneels in front of Medaka, saying he doesn't feel shame in submitting himself to such a hot girl. For the time being, she chooses Akyun as a candidate for taking the role of the captain and asks him to catch up with Zenkichi, as it has been a while. However, the two of them start fighting the moment they come across each other. Zenkichi reveals that the two of them, including Medaka, went to the same middle school. He was head over heels for Medaka but hated Zenkichi's guts. Meanwhile, Medaka decides to access the skills of all the judo club members and wants to fight them one by one. The first contender, named Jounin, arrives and runs towards Medaka, planning to accidentally touch her talents during the fight. She flawlessly beats him and continues to fight the other members. While Akyun is gushing over Medaka, Nakomi goes to talk to Zenkichi and they discuss how doing these supernatural things came across as normal to someone like Medaka. She also praises the club crasher Zenkichi for keeping up with a monster like that. He replies that all Medaka does is drag him around and he has no other choice but to listen to her demands. This makes the down bad boy offer to take his place and comment on how an insect like Zenkichi is not suited to stand by Medaka. The two of them start fighting once again, which gives Nakomi an interesting idea. She wants the two of them to have a judo fight and asks Zenkichi to switch roles with Akuna if he manages to win the fight. Apparently, this was her plan from the start and the reason she requested the student council's support. The match between the two is about to start. Akyun will be deemed as the victor if he manages to secure 10 points, while Zenkichi can win the match even if he manages to score a single point. Medaka tells Zenkichi that he is not allowed to run away no matter what, and with that being said, the battle between the two begins. However, Akyun easily slams Zenkichi onto the ground without breaking a sweat. While Zenkichi gets absolutely destroyed, Nakomi lets Medaka know regarding her hate towards geniuses and how hard work always wins in the end. However, according to Medaka, there are no such things as prodigies. On the other hand, Akyun has already secured a total of 9 points. The other club members are surprised as to how a loser like Zenkichi has gone 9 rounds against Akyun without breaking a single rule. At the same time, Akyun also compliments Zenkichi for fighting even though he has no chance of winning. Just when Akyun is about to end the fight, Medaka unlocks her Riz side and lets Zenkichi know that he is not allowed to lose and how it will be hard on her if he were to leave her side. The power of friendship makes Zenkichi regain his determination, and he finally manages to defeat Akyun with a double-leg takedown. Medaka uses this fight as an example and lets Nakomi know that there is no difference between a prodigy and a normal human, as every person is trying their hardest to survive. The The next day, Zenkichi tells the whole story to Hansode, including how Jounin ended up becoming the captain as he was the only one brave enough to challenge Medaka. Later, he heads towards the student council room and comes across a man flexing himself in the mirror.
Ah, shit. Here we go again.
Turns out Nakomi kicked him out of the judo club after picking a new captain and motivated him to go after the girl of his dreams. He ended up becoming the secretary. And now the student council has a total of 3 members. Later that day, a girl named Yatsushiro visits the student council and requests the council's help in writing a letter. Even though Medaka is the one most suited to write the letter, she asks Akyun to do it instead, considering how it will be his first task as the new member. Later, Yatsushiro lets Akyun know that she wants to write a love letter, and he promises to write something that will win the heart of any man. After Akyun is done writing the letter, he gives it to Medaka to find any possible errors, but she doesn't seem impressed by his work. Medaka emphasizes that Yatsushiro's main goal is to make sure that her feelings reach the man she loves, and it won't mean anything if Akyun is the one writing the letter on his own. After realizing that Medaka is disappointed in Akyun, he tries to take a different route and tells Yatsushiro that she needs to practice and write the love letter on her own. He spends a whole week forcing Yatsushiro to practice, and she eventually succeeds in giving the boy the love letter. This time, Medaka is genuinely impressed by Akyun's work and pats his head, which makes him cry. The 2 useless boys are tired after taking care of the student council paperwork. However, Medaka is still going strong even when she has worked 10 times more than the 2 other losers. Apparently, they are overwhelmed by the number of clubs requesting an increase in the club budget. The school has a huge number of clubs, and they will get nothing but pocket change if the funds are distributed evenly. Furthermore, Medaka once won a math competition and was awarded a ton of money. She plans to use it to help the clubs, but Zenkichi manages to stop her. Later, Akyun comes up with a brilliant plan to host a competition among the clubs, and the winning club will receive all the extra funds. Zenkichi suggests using the school's swimming pool to host the event. Additionally, in order to not give any advantage to the swimming clubs, they plan to hold events which will include going underwater instead of the plain old swimming race. However, Hansode explains that even an underwater battle won't be fair, considering the 3-team special students who are real money grabbers. They are demons when it comes to swimming and even swim for other schools for the right price. Finally, it is the day of the event and all the clubs are gathered near the swimming pool. Afterward, Medaka gives a speech and informs every club that they will need to win their earnings. Furthermore, Zenkichi explains that there will be a total of 4 challenges, and the team with the most points in the end will win the entire battle. Additionally, only 3 members from each club will participate, and boys will be forced to wear flotation devices which will work as handicaps. Medaka also includes the fact that the student council will be participating as well, and whoever manages to score more than the student council will be allowed to increase their budget 3-fold. With that being said, the first battle begins, which is underwater ball basket. Meanwhile, the swim club doesn't seem all that worried and are confident in their skills. Hansode and Tanzaku are the commentators of this match, and they explain that there will be 20 balls per team underwater, and every team must fill their baskets with those balls after retrieving them. Finally, the battle commences, and the girls seem to be having difficulty even without inflatables, considering how deep the pool is. Soon after, Nakomi notices Akyun and Zenkichi chilling by the pool, as according to them, Medaka will be more than enough for them to win this battle. She manages to gather all the balls and throws them in the basket in one shot, all thanks to her big talents, which allowed Medaka to remain underwater for this long. After a while, the time finally runs out and most of the clubs are tied out in the end. However, Medaka still doesn't look confident, as according to her, the swim team was able to finish this task before anyone else, including the mighty Medaka. Afterward, she decides to confront them and asks the reason they didn't inhale air before diving underwater. Turns out, this could be life-threatening, but the swim team didn't care about their lives as long as they received the bread. Up next is the second event, which is the underwater 3-legged race. For this race, Medaka is not participating and lets the other 2 participate, as it wouldn't be a team battle if she did everything on her own. Before the start of the race, both Zenkichi and Akyun make up a brilliant plan to showcase their teamwork to the other contestant. However, as soon as the race started, both of them started to compete with each other, and even during their fight, they were incredibly fast. On the other hand, the swim team finally decides to get serious, and their teamwork along with the perfectly synced movement makes them a very dangerous contestant. In the end, the swim team takes first place while the student council comes in third place. The third event is eel catching, and this time Medaka is the one participating. As expected, all the eels are scared of her, which results in the student council securing 0 points in this event. Before the final event, the swim team gets into a heated discussion with the student council, but is soon caught by Medaka, who begins her motivating lectures. Surprisingly, the swim team doesn't get affected and challenges Medaka to do her best instead. Finally, the last event is the underwater cavalry battle. The headbands of the teams with greater points will be worth more than the teams who are at the bottom of the leaderboard. After evaluating the rules, the swim team realizes that the managers want them to fight the higher level team, but they eventually decide to take it slow and not follow the script the managers have laid. Medaka arrives out of nowhere and mocks the swim team for being scared to face her. This statement makes Magana of the swim team furious, and she is riled up to take Medaka down. As soon as the event starts, both the swim team and the student council start fighting each other. During their fight, Magana lets Medaka know that all three of their families and lives were ruined due to lack of money, which is the main reason they are so obsessed with acquiring as much money as possible. Unfortunately, the two weaklings in the student council team are unable to support Medaka and she ends up falling. Luckily, they are able to throw their floaties in the pool and Medaka manages to stand on them, saving her from disqualification. Afterward, she jumps and lands on top of Magana, letting her know that money can be earned anytime, but nothing is more important than her life. She jumps along with Magana and starts kissing her midair, making everyone freak out. This earns the student council a total of 16 points and they are back at the top of the leaderboard. After the event is over, Medaka advises the swim team members to live for money instead of throwing their lives away for it. Later, Magana does the most cliché thing and asks the swim team if they like her more than money, and they agree. The event ends and unexpectedly, the judo team come on top instead of the student council. While the student council was out of the match, the judo team managed to take the bands of all the remaining teams and secured the first position. With that being said, the judo team takes their leave along with the triple club budget they acquire. The next day, Medaka introduces a new member that she has hired for the student council. Coincidentally, it is Magana and she will be taking over as a treasurer. Zenkichi walks into the student council room and comes across Magana, who is in the midst of changing her clothes. This results in her asking Zenkichi for money as he had laid his eyes on her not-so-attractive plot. Later, the two of them are the only ones in the student council room and the atmosphere has become quiet and awkward. Both of them try to strike up a conversation by complimenting the weather while Zenkichi praises Magana's plot. Luckily, Hansode arrives and manages to break the awkward atmosphere. She then reveals the photo of Magana kissing Medaka, resulting in her freaking out of embarrassment. Nonetheless, Zenkichi manages to save her from Hansode's evil schemes and lets Magana know that Medaka always used to kiss everyone in her childhood. However, she eventually managed to control herself and now her excessive display of affection has become her trump card. Furthermore, just like Magana thinks of the swim team as her family, Medaka thinks of the whole world of her family and wishes to protect everyone she comes across. During their conversation, Magana notices that the two of them are talking normally without being awkward. She decides to use this opportunity and becomes Zenkichi's friend and chooses to follow the same steps that Medaka took with her. Without hesitating for a second, Magana informs Zenkichi that she likes him and wants to kiss him. Soon after, Akyun and Medaka enter the student council room and come across Zenkichi trying his best to stop Magana from smooching all over his disgusting face. Later that day, Yubaru, who is an art club member, arrives in the student council room and wants Medaka to be a model for his next art. She surprisingly agrees and changes into her swimsuit to start her career as a model. However, even after trying hard for a while, Yubaru fails to draw Medaka as a drawing that must surpass the original motif to be considered art. Sadly, Yubaru's skills are not on par with Medaka's beauty, which results in him failing to create the art he envisioned. Having no other option, Zenkichi decides to ask Asaga's help and she agrees after a bit of sugarcoating. Unexpectedly, Akyun also wanted to help and brought Nakomi to act as the model. The two of them fight over who brought the better model but get interrupted when Yubaru promises the girls to make a masterpiece. Nonetheless, this fact is far from the truth as well and he once again fails to draw something he can call art. Yubaru then asks Magana to be his model and she initially declines, only to agree later on when the topic of money is touched. However, he soon ends up rejecting her as well. Having no other option left, Medaka asks the two boys to act as models and their skinny bodies don't help Yubaru in any way as well. While everyone is having a discussion about their next step in finding the perfect model, Hansode arrives in the student council room and Yubaru realizes that she is the one he was searching for. Her innocent face and undeveloped limbs are everything he needs to create the masterpiece he has envisioned. In the end, he managed to draw the art of his dreams and managed to submit it for the contest. Additionally, he also drew a portrait of everyone who gathered to help him as a thank you gift. Haragane, who is a member of the disciplinary committee, is scolding the delinquents for not dressing up properly when they point towards the student council, who are in a way worse condition than them. This results in her visiting the student council room and gives them a piece of her mind. After confronting Zenkichi for wearing a gym jacket and Akyun for revealing his muscles, she shifts her focus towards Magana. Even though her uniform looks perfect at first glance, Haragane reveals the school swimsuit she is wearing inside. With this being said, she forces all three of them to fix their uniform and lashes at Medaka to fix her talent-revealing uniform as well. After arguing with Medaka for a while, Haragane gives up for now and leaves the student council room all frustrated. Soon after, Zenkichi catches up to her and asks Haragane to not be so strict with Medaka and reminds her of all the things she has done for the school. This reminds Haragane of the suggestion box, and an evil plan comes in her mind. Later that day, she takes Medaka to the dirty school pool and lies about how an anonymous person wishes them to find an object that they lost after dropping it inside the pool. Haragane's plan is to switch Medaka's uniform with a normal one when she changes into her swimsuit. To her surprise, Medaka decides to jump in the pool without changing and lets Haragane know that the clothes might be ruined, but finding the lost object is more important than such petty matters. This statement ends up touching Haragane's heart and she jumps in the pool as well, acting as if she managed to find the object to not let Medaka get suspicious. After they get out, Medaka reveals that she has 7 spare uniforms, which is why she didn't care before jumping in the pool. However, the same cannot be said for Haragane, as she borrows Medaka's uniform and ends up becoming a laughingstock for the other kids. Later that day, Zenkichi and Hansode are walking in the school hallway when Haragane tries stopping her from eating in school. They both reveal her embarrassing picture and call her creep. She tries to put handcuffs on Hansode for breaking the rules, but she runs away after pushing Zenkichi towards Haragane, which results in the two of them locking each other with the handcuff instead. After embarrassingly admitting that she doesn't possess the key to the handcuff, both of them decide to head over to the disciplinary committee office to look for one. On their way to the office, they run into Medaka, who thinks of this as a way to remove the discord between them. However, after hearing the actual story, she decides to help them out by unlocking the handcuffs. To demonstrate the way of unlocking the handcuffs, she locks herself with Zenkichi as well, but soon realizes that she is unable to unlock it as well. Now the three of them are stuck with each other, and while making their way to the office, they keep on running into people that Medaka wants to help. After they are done helping the students, 2 delinquents holding weapons reveal themselves as they are looking forward to beating Haragane up. Both of them dash forward, but Zenkichi and Medaka easily take care of these weaklings. After the fight is over, Haragane mentions that if Medaka was able to shatter the metal bat that the delinquents had, she could easily break the handcuffs, which comes as a surprise to her as Medaka didn't think of this before. Fu, who is the vice president of the disciplinary committee, asks Haragane to deliver some stuff to the committee chairman, who is currently present in the music room. At the same time, Hansode runs into Medaka, who is on her way towards the music room as well to fix the soundproofing issues they are having. She further informs her that all the other members are busy taking care of the other requests. This makes Hansode curious about who will be taking the vice president role in the student council. Surprisingly, Medaka asks Hansode to take this role, as then they could have someone on the team who doesn't fawn over Medaka and actually holds her accountable when she has made a mistake. However, their conversation is interrupted by Haragane, who is on her way towards the music room. On the other hand, Unzen, the chairman of the disciplinary committee, informs all the club members about the complaints they have been receiving. The club leader decides to take the loser kid lightly and asks the club members to hand him candy after apologizing for their mistake. However, his arrogance results in Unzen completely shattering his arm and then going after the remaining club members. Soon after, Medaka and the others visit the music room, which is completely destroyed. Afterward, Medaka and Unzen get into a confrontation where he calls her methods naive, saying the rule breakers should be punished accordingly. Unzen tries to make Medaka angry by attacking her with one of his projectiles. However, she decides not to fight and tanks his attacks head-on. In order to rile her up, Unzen informs Medaka about the assassins he has scattered across the school to deal with the rest of the student council members. Without wasting any more time, Medaka leaves to go after the assassins after asking Hansode to make sure that Unzen stays inside the room. The reason she will be able to stop him is because the chairman is absolutely powerful in front of a student who hasn't broken any rules. On the other hand, the first one who is about to get attacked is Megana, and just when the Walmart Wolverine is about to slash her, Medaka arrives and jumps off the window, taking him along. Both of them land on the high jump mat, and Medaka runs away once again after borrowing the spikes and shoes from the track club. Later, she runs up the school building thanks to her spikes and makes her way towards the next assassin. Meanwhile, Akyun is getting targeted by a gorilla-looking dude, and just when he is about to crush Akyun with a pink bicycle, Medaka arrives and steals the bicycle to make her way towards the next target. However, the other members of the disciplinary committee block her way, but she easily manages to get past them thanks to her pink cycle. On the other hand, Fu takes Zenkichi inside the disciplinary committee's office and takes out her blades. Just when she is about to attack Zenkichi using her blade and chains, Medaka breaks into the room and stops the blades from hurting Zenkichi. She breaks the blades with her bare hands, making Fu realize that Medaka is anything but a normal girl. After Medaka manages to save everyone, Zenkichi tells Fu that the student council president was not actually trying to save her friends but the people who were attacking them. He further reveals that the other swim team members care about Magana and wouldn't forgive anyone for hurting her. Akyun is a menace himself and could easily take care of the dude who was trying to hurt him. Additionally, Zenkichi lets Fu know that if any of her chains had grazed him, she wouldn't have been standing on her 2 feet. Afterward, Fu explains everything to Unzen, who leaves the music room after putting a hole in the wall. Back in the student council room, Medaka shows everyone the ball that Unzen uses and lets them know why it can be called a super ball. Her explanation is interrupted by Unzen, who arrives at the student council room and lets them know that he has made some modifications to the super ball. Soon after, he scatters the newly modified balls on the ground and tells Medaka to accept the flaws along with their good sides if she is going to act all goody two-shoes. He further includes that even when he forces people to follow the rules, he has never believed that they could change who people are. After the annoying lecture, Unzen is about to leave the room when Medaka notices something wrong with the super ball and tells everyone that they are explosives. However, it is already too late and the balls explode. The other students notice the explosion as well but don't pay attention to it after realizing that it came from the student council office, thinking how it is completely normal for someone like Medaka. After the explosion, Unzen reveals that the jacket he's wearing is made from such advanced fabric that it can keep him unharmed even if a truck were to hit him. With that being said, Unzen notices some of the balls that failed to explode and it reminds him how Medaka poured water on them at the last second. Additionally, the window glass was already broken before the explosion, which makes him think that Medaka must have kicked the other balls out of the window to minimize the damage. Lastly, he looks out the window and realizes that all the members of the student council are unharmed. Turns out she managed to roll all the members in a rug to protect them from the shockwaves. Unzen finally figures out her true powers, considering how she was able to accomplish this much in a few seconds. Nonetheless, he still doesn't give up and starts mocking Medaka for having a soft spot for others, saying how she still won't fight him as no one got hurt in the end. However, this time Medaka is pissed and tells him to shut up. The color of her hair changes and she refuses to forgive Unzen for what he did. She walks towards Unzen while letting him know how a worthless human like her acts when they are consumed with rage. He still tries to fight her and takes out his super balls, but Medaka lands a punch even before he is able to make use of them. The jacket that is supposed to protect him from a dump truck doesn't seem to be effective in front of Medaka's attack. She catches up to him once again and plans to attack him 3 more times using her full strength, considering how his jacket is so sturdy. Medaka tells Unzen that even though she has mastered martial arts, she won't be using such respectable ways to fight him but will rather let her rage control the fight. However, he doesn't get scared of her threats and comes up with a plan to fight her instead. He purposefully gets attacked by Medaka and crashes into the school building. On the other hand, Zenkichi contemplates Medaka's time in middle school where there was a student named Kimagawa. He possessed every negative human quality. Hurting people came as easy as breathing to him, and he was more similar to a demon than an actual human. While Kimagawa kept on attacking everyone, Medaka tried her best to change him but eventually lost herself to rage and used force to remove him from the school. Back in the present, Medaka figures out that it was Unzen's plan all along to lure her into the school building. He takes out the super balls once again and launches them in every direction. However, Medaka decides to rush through the balls while bearing the pain caused by them. Suddenly, her movements are restricted and Unzen reveals that he wasn't using super balls or explosive balls, but a new type of balls called string balls. The strings are made out of the same material as his jacket and can support a weight of up to 5 tons. Nonetheless, they are not enough to stop her and Medaka starts using brute force to free herself from the strings. Seeing her in action makes Unzen realize that he is not dealing with beauty but an actual beast. She tells Unzen that the strings might be strong but they are still attached to the school building and she will be able to move it using her brute strength. Soon after, the school is split into 2 parts and Zenkichi informs the other member that after Medaka's personality is gone, her raw power is the only thing left. He tells Akuna and Magana that things like this will keep on happening and this is their chance to leave the student council. Nonetheless, they are prepared to support Medaka and see this ordeal through. At this point, Unzen is trapped under rubble and is unable to move. Meanwhile, Medaka succeeds in freeing herself from the strings and is making her way towards Unzen. He tells Medaka that in the end, she is the one who lost and Medaka wasn't able to change him. However, it was never her goal to change him and she is looking forward to putting an end to him. Little does she know that Unzen wants this to happen, as eliminating the same beings she cares so deeply about will be too painful for her to bear later on. Just when she is about to land the finishing blow, the other student council members arrive and restrict her movements. The 3 of them let Medaka know that they won't be leaving her alone ever again, which manages to calm her down and she returns back to her original self. Without wasting another second, Medaka asks Unzen to join the student council, which freaks everyone out. The reasoning behind her decision is that she wants an opposing force in her team, and as Hanzo declines, he is the only choice left. He also declines, and the student council members then take Medaka to the hospital. After they left, Fu and Haragane came to check up on him, and Unzen informed them that the disciplinary committee would exclude the student council from their supervision. Additionally, he orders them to straighten up, as they will have to take care of the disciplinary committee until he recovers. Now that Medaka has been admitted to the hospital, the rest of the members are in charge of the student council activities. Seeing how peaceful it is makes them believe that Medaka might have been the reason for all the trouble they went through. However, both Akyun and Magana still seem relieved after joining the student council and contemplate the time when she saved them in her own way. Meanwhile, Zenkechi still sticks to the excuse of being forced to join the student council. Soon after, a student named Machibaru visits the student council and has a request to make. Apparently, she is the president of the shogi club and wants them to find a missing shogi piece among all the trash gathered in the club room. After finding out the king is the missing piece, they all start cleaning the room and trying to find the missing piece at the same time. While cleaning up the room, they all think about how none of them would have worked together if it wasn't for Medaka. Eventually, they managed to clean the whole room but couldn't find the missing king piece. Afterward, Akyun checks the other boxes containing shogi and realizes that all of them are missing the king piece, which points towards the fact that it is most likely an act of theft. The person that comes into their mind is Miri, who is a special student and is the best player in the club. Later that day, they all give Miri a visit and ask her about the missing king pieces. However, she claims to know nothing and explains that she has nothing to do with it, considering how she has already left the club. Before leaving the club room, Machibaru had informed them that Miri was on the pro player level but was always too harsh on the newbies for not performing well enough. Akyun confronts her about how she was not chosen to be the club president, and out of spite, she leaves the club and steals all the king pieces. Miri replies that it didn't even matter, as none of the club members knew that every king piece was missing, which means that no one played shogi in a long while. Her statement comes more or less as a confession, and Akyun plans to talk to the teacher about it. Nonetheless, Zenkechi stops him and lets him know that the suggestion box or student council wouldn't exist if teachers could have solved everything. With that being said, the single brain cell owner challenges the professional shogi player to a match. He asks her to return the king pieces if he wins, but also offers to let her go if she manages to win. However, he wants to play a shogi variation game instead of the real thing. This makes Miri furious, but Zenkechi blames her for this as well, telling her that there is only so much they can do without kings. Akyun tells Miri that she shouldn't blame others for not improving or practicing when she is turning tail and giving up. Hearing them lecture her about shogi makes Miri realize that the current student council cares about both friends and foes. She thinks that even without Medaka, the student council is still doing a great job. Afterward, all the king pieces were found and Miri returned back to the shogi club. While the school is being reconstructed after the damage Medaka dealt, she is summoned by the principal of the school, Hakama. He informs Medaka that Unzen has taken part in a project he oversees, called the Flask Plan, and wants Medaka to take his position on the disciplinary committee until he returns. On the other hand, Unzen is having lunch with the other disciplinary members and informs them about how members of Class 13 are gathered for this project. He further explains that Class 13 is made up of students considered abnormal in the way that they have certain powers. For an abnormal, things like environment or effort don't mean anything, and they always produce unnatural results. Flask Project is trying to do the same thing and is looking forward to making even more geniuses. Meanwhile, Medaka declines Hakama's offer and lets him know that her only objective is to help strangers. After she leaves, the members of Class 13 reveal themselves, and all of them have mixed opinions on Medaka. On the other hand, Zenkechi runs into Unzen and finds out that Unzen's sister Myaoga is targeting Medaka to take revenge. However, he is a little too late as the battle has already begun. Myaoga crushes Medaka with giant balls. She is using code words to communicate, but surprisingly Medaka also starts replying to her in code words and lets Myaoga know that she has no reason to attack or dodge. The statement pisses her off and Myaoga starts raining down attacks on Medaka, but Nakomi arrives and saves her at the last second. Myaoga asks Nakomi to leave as it is none of her business, but she refuses to let her friend get beat up. Myaoga dashes toward Nakomi, which results in her getting punched into the wall and crashing into the wall. The girl with a brother complex decides to take the fight seriously and release her steel balls. Apparently, this will make her speed increase similar to how Goku's speed increases without his weighted clothes. She quickly manages to circle Nakomi and lands a punch on her back. After taking the hit, Nakomi acts as if she has already lost, which makes Myaoga put her guard down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nakomi restricts Myaoga's movements and slams her on the ground. She manages to stand back up, and this time, Nakomi circles her as well and lands a back suplex. This move puts an end to the fight and Myuga is taken to the hospital. Later, Nakomi lets Medaka know that sometimes the use of violence is necessary, as there are times when not choosing to fight leads to more violence. Nakomi doesn't wait to fight if she ends up losing all her comrades until she makes up her mind. It won't be called a fight but an act of getting revenge. Medaka agrees and leaves after thanking Nakomi for helping her out. Just when the fight is over, Medaka is confronted by 3 more weirdos. They let her know that there are about 100 students who want to go for the open spot in Class 13 and all of them will be fighting Medaka, considering how she is the top candidate. With that being said, all 3 of them lunge towards Medaka, only to receive a brutal beating. On the other hand, Zenkichi and Hansoda are on their way to meet up with Medaka when they run into a Class 13 student named Aodo, who asks them about the location of the Medaka box. Aodo tells Zenkichi to kneel and his body starts moving on its own. Soon after, Yukuhashi arrives and informs Zenkichi about the power of weighted words the Aodo uses. Furthermore, he comments on Medaka, who is standing behind Aodo and is mimicking him. Medaka completely ignores Aodo and starts talking to Zenkichi, which pisses him off, and he orders Medaka to kneel before him as well. Surprisingly, instead of attacking Medaka, he confessed his love and revealed his desire to make her his bride. Zenkichi gets enraged and is about to land a kick on Aodo after breaking free from his powers. Luckily, Yukuhashi manages to stop Zenkichi and save him before Aodo gets serious and decides to end his life. Nonetheless, Aodo leaves after inviting Medaka on a date and letting her know that her powers are too great to waste on pretty strangers. Later, Medaka takes a look at the date proposal Aodo gave her and decides to meet him and reform his egoistic personality. This makes Zenkichi realize that as it's Medaka's goal to bond with everyone, she gets excited when even a bigger and more powerful opponent arrives. Afterward, Medaka informs Zenkichi about her plan to get stronger by paying her brother a visit. Later that day, the 2 of them give her brother named Maguro. His whole room is filled with Medaka's pictures and he seems to be going through a serious sister complex disease. Even though Medaka is creeped out, she manages to keep her cool and greets her older brother with a pleasant smile. This makes Maguro give Medaka a hug, which makes her furious, and she lands a brutal punch on her brother. Just getting punched makes her older brother realize that her muscle mass has decreased, which proves that Medaka is out of shape. Seeing his deduction makes Zenkichi realize the power he holds being a legendary analyst. Additionally, he also praises Zenkichi for training hard and improving a lot since the last time he saw him. With that being said, Medaka requests Maguro to train her, but he refuses after letting her know that she is already strong enough. However, after she tells Maguro her reasoning for wanting to become stronger, she also asks him about the Flash plan. Apparently, he is a former 13 party member and was a part of the Flash plan, but he decided to leave and had to sacrifice 1 kidney, the left lung, 20% of cardiac muscles, 5 arteries and veins, his liver, and 3/4 of his stomach as well. This is the price he had to pay just to leave the Flash plan, which is why he has a fair amount of information on the plan as well. However, he refuses to tell anything to Medaka because he doesn't want her to meet the same fate he did. But that being said, he is aware that it is impossible to stop a monstrous sister like her and wants to help her reach the height of her strength. Eventually, she accepts his proposal and plans to investigate the Flash plan on her own. Additionally, Maguro asks Zenkichi to take part in the training as well so he can protect his beloved little sister. After everything is decided, Maguro gives them 2 training routes. Corsa lets them feel all kinds of pain and hardship, while Course B lets them become strong after a nap. The 2 of them pick Corsa instantly and plan to take the hard road. The next morning, Medaka and Zenkichi visit Aodo at the spot they decided to meet for their date. However, she doesn't plan to go on a date with him and starts asking him about the Flask plan. Her attitude disappoints her and he orders the 2 of them to kneel, but seeing them resist his powers surprises him. Aodo starts moving towards Medaka to take care of her on his own, but Zenkichi gets in his way and lands a kick on his face, resulting in him falling down the roof. To check if he is okay, they take a look below and notice Aodo standing vertically on the wall. Finally, he starts explaining the Flask plan and informs them that the real objective is to create a genius potion for people whose hard work never bears any fruit. However, Medaka argues that the Flash plan is not convenient considering what they did to her brother after he tried to leave. Aodo agrees and tells them that this plan requires sacrifices and predicts that almost 98% of the students from the academy will break down from the experiments conducted on them. But Aodo doesn't care about the experiment, as he will be rewarded with 4 of the successful test subjects, and finally plans to make Medaka his wife. Before leaving, he informs them that the Flask Plan lab is located below the tower they are standing on and invites Medaka to pay a visit. Having this conversation makes them realize how large the Flask Plan really is, and she makes up her mind to crush this whole project. Later that day, the two of them are in the student council office and notice that all the requests are related to the new Class 13 students making a mess. Eventually, she decides to visit the lab at once, and after stepping into the tower, two emo-looking kids greet them. They introduce themselves as the guards of this place and tell them that the only way to open the door is to enter a 6-digit password. However, the chance of that happening is 1 in a million. She agrees to play their annoying games and manages to open the door on her first try. After entering the facility, she tells Zenkichi to try her best as she will be waiting for his arrival. Nonetheless, the loser starts panicking when the other two members of the student council arrive. Magana gives it a try and opens the door on her first try as well. With only the boys remaining, Akun informs Zenkichi that the door is designed to let Medaka pass and the door will open if they enter the number Medaka would have chosen next. But Akun still decides to take a different approach and slams the candle standing nearby on the door. He plans to keep hitting even if it takes a million tries to break the door. Luckily, he manages to break the door with 152 swings and the two of them reunite with the girls. Afterward, the emo boys give them a choice to use the elevator, which is protected with a password, or simply use the stairs. Meanwhile, Hakama and Hansode are watching the live feed of Medaka and the others. Hansode warns her grandfather to not take the other members lightly as they are not normal students as well. On the other hand, Medaka realizes that they have been walking in circles for a while and asks Magana to use the trick she used at the amusement park maze the other day. She agrees and shouts as loud as she can, which results in the boys roasting her for being a human amplifier. Thankfully, the scream made Medaka determine the floor's layout as it worked similarly to a submarine sonar. Suddenly, they come across a Class 13 student and the boys attack him without wasting a second. However, he dodges them both and makes his way toward Medaka and introduces himself as Shigusa. He tells Medaka to have a battle with him and she agrees. Shigusa shows Medaka the little USB drive which contains all the research data he gathered while working on the Flask plant. Soon after, both of them take their stances and Medaka allows Shigusa to make the first move. He strikes her with his knee, but she easily blocks it. Following that, he lands a kick and sends her flying away. Even though she got hit by the attack, Medaka still managed to steal the USB drive that had all his data. Her moves ended up impressing him and he informs Medaka that he is the strongest member of Class 13. Unexpectedly, he manages to steal back the USB drive without her knowing. This makes her thrilled as if Medaka manages to defeat Shigusa, all the upcoming targets will be weaker in comparison. Additionally, she plans to find out his abnormality and throws all the super balls she acquired from Unzen. Surprisingly, he manages to dodge every single one of them, and this makes Medaka realize that all the moves he makes are reflexive. While normal humans have to think before moving, his powers allow him to get past this delay, which allows him to move even quicker. Following that, Zenkichi gives Medaka the idea to use clones and she gives it a try. But he still manages to catch her in the end, letting her know that he caught her at the last second after solely relying on his reflex. He then breaks her arm, but Medaka doesn't look disappointed, considering how she managed to steal the USB drive back again. This time, she buries it in her talons, making Shigusa worried about the retrieving process. After fighting Medaka for a while, Shigusa comes up with a theory that Medaka doesn't have reflexes to begin with and she manually controls every part of her body. This allows her to control all her muscles and unleash the true potential of her body. Afterward, Shigusa reveals another storage drive and lets Medaka know that all his data can never be stored in the tiny USB drive she has in her possession. Finally, Medaka decides to take this fight seriously and takes off her shoes. Zenkichi realizes what is about to happen and asks Akun and Magana to get back. Medaka starts jumping, and the time of her landing and the sound Shigusa hears are not synced with each other. In an instant, she makes her way towards Shigusa and hits a terrifyingly strong punch. As there was no sound, his reflexes didn't kick in, which resulted in him not being able to dodge. However, this move also destroyed Medaka's body. Just when they are about to leave, Shigusa requests Medaka to fight for a little longer as she is the monster he has sought to fight for a long time. Medaka agrees and the two of them start frantically punching each other without dodging any of them. The only reason Shigusa joined the Flask plan was to find someone who could actually hurt him, and he has finally found the one. However, Medaka starts running out of steam and finishes the fight after landing a kick on his head. This move makes him realize that Medaka can not only turn off her reflexes but also turn them on whenever she desires. After watching their fight, Hakama concludes that Kei, who is waiting for her on the second floor, will be a troublesome opponent, considering how he has eliminated many people and is wanted as a criminal, the same strangers that Medaka tries so hard to help and protect. After reaching the second floor, they all come across an artificially made scenery. The air pressure and lighting have been adjusted to match an outdoor setting. Suddenly, Kei arrives and asks them to close the door if they understand how the place works. Kei lets them know that he has no intentions of stopping them or forcing Medaka to join their team. Medaka takes his offer and starts heading to the next floor, but unexpectedly, he swings his sword at her. She manages to dodge it in the nick of time, or it could have been the end of her. Apparently, he has mastered the art of concealing weapons all over his body. Kei lets them know that he planned to eliminate her from the start and wanted to use a different strategy, considering how he is not a full-fledged fighter like Shigusa. Out of nowhere, Meguro arrives and starts troubling his little sister, resulting in her going more god mode and punching the crap out of him. Afterward, he asks Medaka to rest a little and focus on her injuries while asking Zenkichi to face the opponent this time. He agrees and walks towards the opponent, refusing to take a weapon when Kei offers him one. Soon after, Kei starts off the battle by attacking Zenkichi using a sword, but he punches it with his bare hand, making the sword fly off and get stuck in the ceiling. Kei keeps on attacking him with several swords, and Zenkichi sends all of them flying away. Seeing how the swords are not working, Kei takes out 2 giant hammers and tries to crush Zenkichi, but he manages to take them out of Kei's hands as well. In the end, Kei takes out a spiked staff and attacks Zenkichi with it. However, he manages to stop the attack using his shirt and lands a kick on Kei. This makes Magana think that Zenkichi won, but Meguro sees this as the start of the real battle. This time, Kei whips out some pistols, but Zenkichi instantly kicks them out of his hand and disassembles them in a second. Kei keeps on taking out different kinds of guns, but Zenkichi also manages to defend himself in the end. Seeing him fight makes Medaka realize that Zenkichi has always been by her side for 13 years, which is the reason she loves him. Hearing this statement takes Akyun in shock, while Magana starts celebrating this confession. On the other hand, Kei finally decides to move on to explosives and throws grenades at him. Seeing how they didn't work, he then takes out the rocket launcher, but Zenkichi still kicks it out of his hand. Now that he is out of weapons, hand-to-hand combat commences and Zenkichi easily puts him down. Just when everyone thinks that Zenkichi won, he is stabbed with several swords and falls to the ground, while Kei blames him for lowering his guard. Medaka, who thinks that Zenkichi is done for, starts crying, but suddenly, he stands back up. Zenkichi confronts Kei for making the beast cry, and he slams his foot on the ground, making all the swords that were stuck on the ceiling fall on top of Kei, injuring and trapping him. Now that Kei has lost the battle, Akyun plans to give him to the police, but it won't be necessary as Kei has never eliminated anyone. Kei reveals that he always had an urge to eliminate anyone he saw, which is why he always scared them away by showing them deadly weapons. However, he still wanted to have friends, which is why he joined the Flask Plan. To everyone's surprise, Kei asks Zenkichi to become his friend, and he informs Kei that the two of them are already friends, considering how they fought each other. On the other hand, Hakama is surprised after seeing Zenkichi's abilities, which puts him on par with an abnormal. After arriving on the 3rd floor, they all find nothing but animals on both sides. Apparently, it's a zoo, and Medaka excitedly decides to go and pet every animal there is. However, her excitement is shattered when Magana comments on how much she dislikes animals. One by one, she roasts all the innocent animals on their appearances, which results in the 2 girls getting in a fight. One thing that both Zenkichi and Meguro notice is that none of the animals are scared of Medaka like the ones found outside this place, making them suspicious about them. Meanwhile, Akyun is wandering around the floor and comes across a member of Class 13 named Yauka, who is the current supervisor of the Flask Plan. She asks Akuna to take his friends and leave this place, but he refuses, which results in Itami appearing behind him. This whole situation makes him remember his past days when he used to be a complete menace, someone who was out of both the teachers' and police's hands. However, he didn't do all the dirty work because he wanted to. The student council president used to order him around. One day, he asked Akyun to take care of Medaka, and he successfully did. Surprisingly, he saw Medaka coming back to school and attacked her once again. Nonetheless, no matter how many times he used to attack, Medaka always used to return the next day. Slowly, people started to be less scared of him, who couldn't even break a single girl. Eventually, Zenkichi found out about his doings and went to take care of him, but was stopped by Medaka. She prohibited him from attacking Akyun and tried reforming him into a better person. After his life flashed before his eyes, Akyun came back to the present and managed to defend himself from Itami's attack. The battle between Itami and Akyun begins, and during their fight, Yauka reveals that Itami has strength equal to Shigusa. Akyun decides to use one of the moves he learned in judo and starts grappling with Itami. However, her raw strength allows her to free herself, and the kick she misses ends up destroying the floor, resulting in all of them falling down. Apparently, Itami used to be a very normal girl who wasn't abnormal in the first place, but she soon got tired of her normal life and asked Yauka to change her. Itami's attraction to the abnormal turned her into an abnormal herself. After landing on one of the floors below, Itami tries landing a kick, but this time, Akyun catches her mid-air and breaks her leg. This results in him lowering his guard, and Itami uses this opportunity to land a chop on his shoulder. Yauka reveals that Itami's abnormality allows her to heal a fracture in less than 10 seconds. Just when they are about to put an end to Akiyun, Meguro arrives and starts inspecting Yauka's plot. Itami gets furious and tries to attack him, but in his defense, it is rude to see a cute girl and not flip her plot. Meguro lets Akuna know that he accidentally came across this place, but Yauka refuses to buy this excuse. She figures that the animals on the 3rd floor piqued his interest, which made him curious about the current supervisor of the Flask plant. However, he tries to reject her understanding by letting her know that he is a cultured guy who will always be present where girls in panties are present. Hearing Meguro speak makes Itami feel disgusted, and she backs off while Yauka lets him know that she isn't wearing anything under her shirt. Meguro challenges Yauka and tells her to prove her statement if he manages to show that his skills are superior to hers. She agrees and the battle begins, but Meguro tells Akuna to fight instead as he is not built for physical battles. Itami lunges towards Akiyun and pins him on the ground. Meguro helps Akuna out by taking off his pants, making Itami lose her attention and giving Akiyun the chance to lock her on the ground. As her bone fracture heals quickly, he decides to dislocate her bones instead of breaking them. However, she easily manages to fix her dislocated bones and is back to her usual form. Meanwhile, Yauka is impressed by their determination and takes off her shirt as a special service. Eventually, Meguro decides to show off his capabilities to Yauka and gives Akiyun an idea of how he can defeat Itami. He soon picks up on what Meguro is trying to tell him and pins Itami on the ground. Surprisingly, he isn't attacking or defending but is pinning her on the ground because he wants to exhaust Itami. After inspecting the whole battle, Akiyun has finally figured out that her body uses energy at a tremendous state, which makes fatigue her biggest weakness. Yauka finally reveals that Itami can only use her full strength for 3 minutes. Seeing how she lost the challenge, Yauka is about to take off her shirt, but Meguro stops her and asks her to take off her mask instead. After seeing her face for the first time, Itami contemplates the reason she wears a mask even though she is this beautiful, while Akiyun realizes that her face reminds him of someone else. After seeing her face, Meguro asks Yauka to put her skirt back on and he withdraws from the fight. Later, Yauka asks Akiyun to let Itami go as they have already admitted their defeat. After giving them the research data, Yauka is about to leave, but Meguro stops her and says her real name, which is Kujira. This makes Meguro think of the past, about how the Kurakami family has a son and 2 sisters including Medaka. Kujira is the middle child and she is different from their sibling and outshone Medaka in the field of biology. Surprisingly, now even Zenkichi knew about her existence because she used to avoid human interactions. She used to sit at her desk all day, staying away from anything that could be considered fun. According to her, happiness was something not to look forward to, as great things only come from hell. Kujira used to follow her beliefs religiously, and even though her siblings used to love her unconditionally, none of it mattered to her. Eventually, she left home and never came back. It had been 6 years since Meguro saw her last. Meguro reveals that he did everything to look for her, and his reason for joining the Flask plan was to find her as well. According to him, not a day had passed by in which he hadn't thought of Kujira. His statement makes her overjoyed and she runs towards Meguro, just to inject him with a substance. Kujira lets him know that he doesn't need family, friends, or all those happy things in her life. This current situation makes Kujira change her mind and she decides to continue the Flask plan. Suddenly, the wall breaks and Medaka makes her way inside. She takes a look at Kujira and recognizes her as her older sister. Akiyun warns Medaka that Kujira has erased her memories and isn't the sister she used to know. Before Kujira can even make a move, Medaka slams her on the ground and takes the injection that is in her hand. Apparently, the injection that Kujira gave to Meguro has the power to remove abnormalities, but it still hasn't been completed yet. Medaka asks Kujira for the antidote, but she agrees to give it if Medaka becomes her guinea pig instead. Without wasting another second, she agrees and injects the substance into her body. This results in Medaka losing her consciousness, but Kujira still refuses to hand over the antidote, just when Itami is about to attack them once again. Medaka gets back up, blocks Itami's attack, and sends her flying. Surprisingly, even after the effects of abnormalities have left her body, it doesn't affect Medaka that much, as all those years of training still remain. Eventually, Kujira agrees to give her the antidote, but this substance makes her lose consciousness once again. Medaka gets back up, and this time, she seems lost. Kujira explains that even though the antidote was the real one, she had modified it and turned it into a memory suppressant. Now that Kujira has stripped Medaka of her powers and her memory, she has nothing left to work with. However, she soon figures out that fighting Itami is her mission and lunges at her. However, this fight resulted in Itami's overwhelming victory. Kujira reveals that her abnormality has returned as the substance she gave her was incomplete, but she lost to Itami, which shows how much her personality supports her abnormality. After seeing such interesting results, Kujira has become even more curious and wants to see how her sister looks after she puts a different personality in Medaka's body. Apparently, the only one who can do such a task is the self-proclaimed king, Auto. While Kujira is putting back her mask to hide the ugly face, the +6 arrive and offer to assist them in beating up the intruders. On the other hand, Akun meets up with Zenkichi and is furious after hearing his plan to give the other students priority over Madoka. Suddenly, the whole disciplinary committee along with Nakomi and the Class 13 members they beat comes to their aid. Apparently, Hansode had announced their embarrassing defeat on Twitter, which allowed everyone to gather here. They all plan to give it their all and save Madoka. Nakomi informs everyone about the elevator that will take them to the 13th floor. Meanwhile, Madoka is now in the hands of Auto, and he plans to give her an evil heart that will be suited for someone he can call his wife. On the other hand, they press the elevator button, but unfortunately, the +6 arrives. Seeing how they are in a pinch, Unzen tells Zenkichi to take the other student council members to floor 13 while they try to hold off the +6. When the weaklings finally leave, the battle starts and Yutori uses her hair to restrict everyone's movement. Luckily, Kei makes use of his sword and cuts down her hair, freeing everyone from her grip. Afterward, he takes up a gun and unloads all the bullets, just to have a stormtrooper aim and miss every single one of them. While everyone is fighting, Unzen and Nakomi are chilling in the back and keeping a look at Gunki and Hamea, who are supposed to be on a different level in terms of strength. Meanwhile, Zenkichi and the others finally reach the 13th floor and run into Yukihashi. He informs them that Auto is currently busy brainwashing Madoka and will be finished in 15 minutes. Just when Zenkichi is about to attack, he along with the others falls on the ground due to sleeping gas. However, Magana is the only one who doesn't get affected, as her being a member of the swim team can hold a lot of breath in her mouth. Yukihashi starts making her mad by insulting Madoka, which results in Magana screaming, and her scream creates a shockwave that is enough to slam Yukihashi on the wall. However, due to her screaming, all the air she had stored escapes and she starts getting sleepy. But she rips off her nail and forces herself to stay awake. Magana informs Yukihashi that even though she considers herself a competitor instead of a fighter, she is willing to fight if it is for a friend. She screams once again, which breaks all the glass present in the room. Yukihashi also reveals that he has the ability to read minds, which is why he is always aware of the things she's got planned. She rips off another one of her nails and Yukihashi thinks of her as a fool, reminding him of the days when he used to struggle due to his powers. This was until he came across Auto, who recruited him. Back to the present, Magana plans not to think things through and act on her impulse to get by his mind-reading ability. This time, she screams while looking at the ceiling, which makes all the rubble fall on top of her, ultimately injuring her body. However, it somehow hurts Yukihashi as well. The only reason Magana did this is because she realized Yukihashi could feel everything along with her thoughts, which included the pain and suffering she was going through. In the end, Magana figures that the only reason he used sleeping gas was to make sure they can't fight, as he doesn't really know how to hurt people either. She calls him the kindest member of the 13 party and asks for his help in saving Madoka. As he can feel her genuine and honest thoughts, he starts getting persuaded, but Auto arrives at the same time. His arrival brings Yukihashi back to his right mind and he goes back to Auto's side. Auto informs Magana that Madoka's brainwashing has been completed. He starts off by making Magana kneel before him and uses his abilities to crush Magana under the rubble. Luckily, Zenkichi has arrived at the right time and saved Magana before she gets crushed to her demise. Simultaneously, Akun restricts Auto's movements by putting him in a chokehold. However, Auto uses his electricity to attack Akun and his weighted words to make Zenkichi choke Magana. Maguro, who is present at the scene, reveals that Auto's powers let him control other people's minds. Nonetheless, Zenkichi manages to free himself from the power of his weighted words and confronts Auto for brainwashing Madoka. But Auto argues that Zenkichi was trying to do the same thing by hoping that Madoka would let go of her righteous personality and live a normal life. Zenkichi replies that he will never stand so low and brainwash her when suddenly Madoka makes an appearance. She makes an announcement that she is no longer Madoka Kurakami but Madoka Kurakami Revised. Madoka reveals that she is not the same person as before and her previous version doesn't exist anymore. Auto comments on how she has been brainwashed, but according to Madoka, this is not the case, as she has only come back to her senses. She announces that the student council will be helping out with the Flask plan and she will be joining the 13 party. Furthermore, she reveals that her true mission is to realize the supreme being she is and she doesn't care about helping others. They all try to make her come back to her senses, but it doesn't work and she ends up firing everyone from the student council. However, Zenkichi and the others are not ready to leave the student council yet and stand in her way, letting her know that they won't be quitting this easily. Madoka uses the power of weighted words and orders them to kneel before her. Maguro starts talking to Madoka and lets her know that she hasn't shed any burden from her shoulders at all, considering how she is unnoticeably crying. Suddenly, Zenkichi manages to free himself from the weighted word power and lands a kick on Madoka. He tells the revised version that he will be defeating her and will bring back the original Medaka. A full-fledged fight between the two commences. During their fight, Medaka contemplates that an annoying loser like Zenkichi never bends no matter how many kicks he receives. Their fight reminds Medaka of her past memories when she was taken to the Kurakami household after her mother's demise. Even though she was an infant, Medaka spent 3 months reading every book present in the library. Eventually, a mathematician gave her a really difficult problem to solve and she instantly did it. This left him in shock and he ended up giving up his job. However, that mathematician was not the only victim, as many more came and were defeated by a literal child. This made her wonder the reason she was brought into this world. When she turned 2, she was taken to a hospital designed for abnormal children like her. There, she met a loser who couldn't even solve the easiest toy puzzle. She solved every single one of them for him and he was overjoyed. Eventually, she also asked him the reason behind her existence and he replied that it was to make others happy. That was the first time she discovered herself and found the meaning behind her existence. Back in the present, she strikes Zenkichi with a brutal blow while thinking that memories of the past change nothing about who she is right now. She strikes him down, letting him know that she doesn't need the purpose he gave him 13 years ago. Just when she starts choking the life out of Zenkichi, he lets her know that he still believes in what he told her 13 years ago. This makes scream in pain and Aodo realizes that she is trying to brainwash herself and that her brain might melt as it is a really dangerous process. Thankfully, Zenkichi stops her midway and lets her know that she doesn't have to turn back if the process is this painful. His kind words bring back the old Medaka and she announces that the reason she was born is to help strangers. She informs Aodo that she will be destroying the Flask plan and making them happy in the process. Seeing how Medaka is back to her senses, Aodo reveals a stairway and wants to settle things in the lowest depth. After walking down the stairs, they finally reach the control room where 131,313 supercomputers are present, running 24 hours a day and 365 days a year. Ikuhashi reveals that Aodo is the one who controls all the supercomputers and does research on abnormality. This makes Medaka realize that defeating Aodo will take care of their problems in the Flask plan. According to Aodo, all the people will be happy if the Flask plan is a success, considering how they will be perfect and won't need her help anymore. However, Medaka argues that creating a perfect human is impossible and a human can't be perfect if he lacks imperfection. Itami gets furious and plans to fight Medaka, but Aodo stops her and starts stealing her abnormal using his powers. He reveals that he is able to use 100% of the strength he steals and later attacks Medaka with his newly developed powers. On the other hand, Itami starts bleeding and is on the verge of demise. Yauka starts tearing up and apologizing for everything she did. She asks Meguro to save her, offering to do anything he wants in exchange. Meanwhile, Medaka gets up and goes War God mode, attacking Aodo and sending him crashing away. This reminds Aodo of his childhood days when he discovered his abnormal powers. At first, he left his home after realizing that his parents might try to control him after learning about his abilities. He wished to use his powers to rule only for world peace and happiness. He always used his abilities to learn more about them and never experimented on others. However, no one knows what Aodo did for 3 years before arriving at their school. Back to the present, Medaka goes into an even more dangerous mode and her hair turns from pink to black this time. The battle commences and even after getting hit by Aodo, she heals her wounds in an instant. Yauka explains to everyone that the black hair mode is called Altered God, which allows her to control herself and use 120% of her powers. She doesn't just take other people's abnormalities, but also masters and perfects them. After seeing how Aodo can't comprehend what he just heard, Medaka allows him to steal her abnormality. Without hesitating, he tries to steal her powers, but all he witnesses is a monster inside her heart, making the grown boy scream and lose all his determination. He announces that Never claims to be the king and decides to give up on the Flask plan. Furthermore, he promised to make sure that Itami survives and will compensate everyone who was sacrificed for the Flask plan. In the end, he swears never to use his powers again and never to do anything evil. However, Medaka is still not satisfied and orders Aodo to apologize, and he apologizes to everyone after slamming his head on the ground. With that being said, they all destroy everything related to the Flask plan, as the chairman might have not given up on it this easily. While they were destroying all the research, Zenkichi contemplates how Medaka easily forgave Aodo, as he might have sent him flying without giving him the chance to apologize. After finishing all their work, they all get in the elevator and Medaka asks Aodo to use his weighted words and take care of everyone who is fighting on the floor above. He agrees, but everyone is left in shock after seeing how everyone has been massacred and none of the team members are alive. Suddenly, Kimagawa appears and is covered in blood, pointing towards the fact that he is responsible for all the chaos. This was all about our kind student council president. Will Medaka fight and secure a win against Kimagawa? Comment Medaka below and let us know if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel for more plot-filled recaps.